So welcome everyone to our webinar titled Using Kanban and Scrum in Practice. My name is Ben Harampili and I'm a pre-sales consultant here at Inland Software, and I'm going to be hosting today's webinar. What's on the agenda? First of all, I'm going to give you a short introduction of our company, and I'm going to introduce both Scrum and Kanban and Lean and Agile and how they relate to each other, clarify their similarities and differences, and then talk about using Scrum and Kanban in practice before giving you a live demonstration of Codebeamer ALM and how it supports the use of Kanban and Scrum. These are the live examples that we will show in the demonstration. So Scrum in software development environment, Kanban in software development, Kanban in marketing, Kanban in support and DevOps, and then Scrum and Kanban used together in large-scale enterprises in an agile environment or the Scaled Agile framework. These are kind of basic topics, but if you're interested in more specific or more advanced topics like Scrum and Kanban and Agile in a safety critical embedded environment, for example, if that's interesting for you, feel free to contact us and we can schedule a one-on-one demo, or you can browse through our videos and past webinars on our website at inland.com or email us at sales@inland.com. Okay, so a little bit about us. We were founded in 1998. Our headquarters is in Stuttgart, Germany, and we're the sole vendors and developers of Codebeamer ALM, which was named the most agile ALM tool according to Obum's report on ALM tools. We also have an office in the Silicon Valley, California. We have resellers in UK, China, Korea, Taiwan, France, and Italy. And our partners are Lufthansa Industry Solutions. These are our clients that you see here. As you can see, we focus on the medical, automotive, aviation, and defense, so the safety critical industries. But we have clients in different industries like the high tech and embedded and finance, for example, so other industries. You can really see how scalable our solution is. We have small teams of a couple users, but we also have, for example, at Lufthansa Systems, we have over 5,000 users. So it's pretty scalable. A few words about the webinar. It will be followed, the demonstration will be followed by a Q&A session, so you can ask your questions as always, and you will also receive a recording of the webinar, but you can find it as well on our website. And next week, we'll have one on our managing traceability in an agile safety critical development environment. And feel free to check out our earlier archive of webinars. We have a bunch on our website at inland.com. Okay, so before I talk about anything else, I'd like to introduce Lean in a few words. So Lean Software Development, or LSD, is a translation of Lean manufacturing and Lean IT principles and practices to the software development domain. It was first adapted from the Toyota production system, and a pro-Lean subculture is now emerging from within the Agile community. A typical Lean company follows the learn, measure, build cycle and tries to minimize the total time through this loop by coding, measuring, and learning faster, by conducting many tests, and frequently connecting with customers, understanding their values, and focusing its key processes on continuously improving these aspects. There are a variety of processes you can implement using Agile and Lean depending on your team specifics, such as extreme programming, for example, which is another Agile methodology, feature-driven development, and so on. These are all suitable in certain environments and are able to make your working process much more effective, productive, and efficient, but are outside the scope of today's webinar, so we won't be talking about those. Today we're going to be talking about Scrum and Kanban, which are perhaps the most popular Agile and Lean techniques out there right now. Both Agile and Lean are aimed at achieving business goals and customer satisfaction with a competitive and good quality product, but they do, however, serve different purposes and tasks, and it's good to draw a clear line between them to better understand what they're about. All the mentioned methodologies and philosophies are connected with each other, with Kanban flowing into all the other three, as you can see on this previous slide here. And now let's get down to the more specific level of the methodologies. We can continue with the introductions of Kanban and Scrum, but in order to understand these terms, we will first need to also understand Agile. Agile software development describes a set of principles for software development under which requirements and solutions evolve through the collaborative effort of self-organizing cross-function teams. It is a time-boxed, iterative approach to software delivery that builds software incrementally from the start of the project instead of trying to deliver everything all at once near the end. It works by breaking projects down into smaller bits of user functionality called user stories, prioritizing them, and then continuously delivering them in short tweak cycles called iterations or sprints. User stories are features which the clients might one day like to see in their software. And the most important part here is continuous delivery. Agile can be implemented in multiple ways using various popular frameworks, as well as their updated or customized versions, which I will show you later in the live demonstration, of which two of these are Scrum and Kanban. Scrum is a method that focuses on continuous delivery, like I said, while Kanban originates from lean manufacturing and focuses on process, but I'll talk more about what this means in the later slides. What you see here on the bottom of the slide is the Agile Manifesto. These are the 4 main principles. So according to the Agile Manifesto, Agile software development finds more value on the items on the left compared to the items on the right. So individuals and interactions over processes and tools, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, working software over comprehensive documentation, and responding to change over following a plan. Scrum. In Scrum, the process is broken up into much smaller pieces than in Waterfall, for example, making it much easier to implement and implement changes and corrections if needed, if they arise. First of all, you plan only enough for you to get started with, building the minimal feature set. And then you build what was planned and gather feedback from your customer or end user to make sure that the end product perfectly suits their needs. You will then test and review that small feature set and get it ready for delivery. At the end of this process, you're left with a potentially shippable product, and this entire cycle usually lasts 1 to 3 or 2 to 4 weeks, and is repeated, reducing the time from planning to development to testing. These incremental releases that help develop a complex product in short iterations are called sprints, which are the basic building blocks of Scrum. The Scrum Framework defines how you should build your teams and what roles should be fulfilled in your teams. A Scrum team is usually a small team of usually 8 to 10 people with members in 3 different roles. One product owner, they represent the customer of your product, and they make sure that what the Scrum team is doing and working on is what the customer wants and expects. The best here is actually if the product owner is from your customer, the customer itself of your product. One Scrum Master who they know the Scrum process really well, and they help everybody else cope with the process, and that's what their role is. And then delivery team, which is everybody else, and they actually develop the product, and their role is to not be product owner or Scrum Master. Let's talk about the meetings in Scrum. Backlog grooming meeting. So before your sprint starts, backlog is set of all tickets you have to work on. And this is a meeting on writing, clarifying, prioritizing, and chopping up tickets into smaller ones if needed, which are usually called user stories or stories. The backlog grooming meeting prepares everybody for the kickoff, where the difficulty of tickets are estimated. After you have estimated all the stories you can finish in one sprint, your team commits to finishing that set of stories. The velocity is an estimation of how many stories your team can realistically finish in one sprint. A stand-up meeting takes place at the beginning of each workday where team members talk about what they're working on and what blockers they have encountered, and the Scrum Master should follow up on all blockers every day that come up. The Scrum Master should also update the number of points that are left to complete the iteration, and this is called the burn down and can be visualized on the burn down chart that you can see here. On the last day of the sprint, the developers demo the product to the product owner and the rest of the team. And finally, at the end of each sprint, after the demo, is the retrospective meeting, where the team talks about what went well and what challenges they faced, why they could or couldn't complete all the stories in that sprint, and what they can focus on in the next one, or what they need to focus on. Kanban is a lean scheduling system originally developed by Toyota to help build efficient car manufacturing processes. It utilizes visual cues that tell you what to produce, how much to produce, and when to produce it originally. It's an effective tool to support running a production system as a whole, but can be used to actually visualize and manage any process that requires tasks to be completed, and is an excellent way to promote improvement. When Kanban is adapted to software development, it usually starts with a board and visual cards that represent items in your product backlog. On the board, you place the cards in the columns that represent their current step in their workflow, ranging from new to complete, and the other steps in between in the workflow are up to you to determine. This visualization gives you a good overview of what is in progress, already done, and what is going to be worked on next. The advantage of the electronic Kanban, which you see on the right-hand side, as opposed to the hard copy cardboard, is first and foremost the assurance of traceability, which you don't have at all in the other, in a non-electronic version of Kanban. And of course, the ease of collaboration with shared teams across the globe. So if you have teams working all over the world, of course, a normal Kanban cardboard doesn't work. But an electronic Kanban board works great. Kanban imposes limits on the number of items that can be in a single column at one time, called work in progress limits, and they help you keep work flowing, complete your tasks, and save you time by eliminating too much task switching. Unlike in Scrum, in Kanban, the estimation of items is optional, so it can be left out. And after an item is complete, the team members simply pull the next item from the backlog and proceed with implementing it. Some teams still choose to carry out the estimation in order to have more predictability, of course. Or another approach is just to have items that are similar in size or in difficulty, and therefore they can be completed in the same amount of time. So that's one way to leave out estimations. Kanban allows the adding of new items whenever there is enough capacity in the queue, and therefore Kanban is very useful for functions with continuous flow of new items. If a column is overloaded, however, it is obvious what needs to be worked on and helps remove bottlenecks from your development process, as long as your developers swarm on that column and they're working on the right things at the right time. On this slide, you can see a framework of how Scrum and Kanban can be used together in a development and operations environment. On the project level at the top, you can see the customer as stakeholders, and the customer defines the scope together with the managers by using the Kanban board to manage the tickets. And after each iteration coming from the team, there is a demo for the customer, usually. The customer can define bugs, change requests, and give further feedback. And the operation team, they can clarify whether that item is a bug that needs to be fixed or a change request that the customer needs to pay for, optionally. One level lower on the program level, each team is operating and working on a common release, and they're all working on Scrum in this case. And DevOps is about your teams continuously integrating and implementing these changes from the customer. Okay, and what you see here is a company scaled agile development example similar to the one on the previous slide. Each level, so portfolio, Value stream, program, and team has its own Kanban board and workflow. For example, the portfolio level, where the enterprise managers are need to prioritize and analyze what would be the best strategy for the company. And there's a formula on how you can prioritize that. You can find that on the scaleagileframework.com website. But it's called the weightest shortest job first, but I don't want to get into that too deeply. The value stream level has its own Kanban board for their own capabilities, which are kind of like features but are aggregated higher and need multiple agile release trains. Program level utilizes Kanban board for the prioritization of the features, and each team at the bottom on the team level has their own Kanban board for prioritizing user stories. And prioritization for each level is broken down like this. On the portfolio level, the solution management does the prioritization on, program portfolio management does the prioritization on the program level, the product management, and on the team level, the product owner does the prioritization of each work item in the Kanban board. This is a pretty complex example, but hopefully when I show you this in the demo, it will make more sense. And then without further ado, let me jump into our tool and into the live demonstration. What I'm going to be showing right now is how actually our own development team uses Scrum and Kanban together to develop the software that you see here, which is Codebeamer. If I go into, okay, Codebeamer is under maintenance. Oops. Let's try that again. Well, this is embarrassing. Okay, let me jump into another environment real quick, and hopefully they'll finish maintenance up pretty quickly. And I can jump back into that. I can show you this on any project, actually. If I go into our medical template, for example, I can show you releases, and you will be able to see how you can use Scrum and Kanban, actually, and I will just explain how our own development team uses it. So what I have here is I have releases 1.0, 1.1, and if I open this up, I have 2 sprints, and I have a bunch of items in each sprint, assigned to each sprint. And I have a project backlog, and each release has its backlog. And if I go into one of my releases, I can click on the release planner, and I can plan, prioritize items, and assign items to each release. So I can move items up and down to change the rank, or I can move items to the left to change the release or sprint that it is assigned to. So now I assign this to the sprint, and I can change the prioritization as well. So this is kind of a vertical process, while the Kanban board, if I jump to the Kanban board, that's more of a horizontal, so I can change the process. And if I start dragging and dropping one of these items for a requirement, for example, I can see the workflow working in the background. I can see where I can drag it, which status I can change it to. And I have a different workflow for bugs, for example. So if I want to start moving bugs, I can only resolve or close the bug. Same goes for change requests. I can put this into different statuses. And then that will be also reflected in the statistical overview, where I can see my story points, my committed story points, and what I finished. I also have a burn down chart for each release. And let me check real quick if we can. Codebeamer is finished with. Yes, great, they finished maintenance. So as you can see, our next release that they're working on is 8.0.0. They have a bunch of tasks assigned to this release and its first sprint. And again, If I go into the release planner, I can prioritize and assign items to releases. Okay, the next example that we talked about that I wanted to show is how a support team works. The way we have it set up is actually, if I go into Codebeamer releases, our support team actually has a separate release in the development project set up for support. And then our colleagues working in support use the Kanban board to view all the items and manage the process of each item that's coming in from support, manage change requests or bugs, and verify them. So we have basic to do, in progress to verify, and done columns for support. And again, I have issues that have a different workflow in the background that's enforced in the Kanban board as well. So I can only start this issue because it's a linear process. But these issues can be submitted or verified as well. And requirements and bugs can be submitted and reopened. So the workflow is completely different for each one. Back in quality development, I think I have an example of what the Kanban board looks like when you have overloaded columns or free capacity. If I can change really easily. I can configure this here. So if I want to add work in progress limits, I can do that just as easily by typing in numbers and limits for each column. Okay, so another kind of a little bit more out of the box example is a marketing team working with the Kanban board. Here, a marketing team has set up a release and then sub-sprints for each month. So they're not working in a strictly Scrum environment like our development team, who have basic stand-up meetings, retrospective meetings, and demos and everything as a normal Scrum team would. They only have stand-up meetings, a 15-minute marketing call every day, as far as I know. And then they have a monthly sprint for each item and each task. And then they just use the Kanban board to manage all the items in 1 month and all the tasks that they have to finish in that month. So if I go into the August sprint, I can see what they're working on, what's in progress, what's partly completed, and what's completely done. So that's another good example. Okay, then more for the enterprise level example. We have portfolio level, program level, and team level set up separately for each in each project for each level separately. And in the portfolio level, the highest level, we have actually our epics workflow that I will show you in the customization real quick. We have it set up in a way that it actually mirrors what the Scaled Agile framework has written about epic workflows. So they could first go into the funnel, then they're reviewed, analyzed, and then added to the portfolio backlog, implemented, and then completed. And on the Scaled Agile framework homepage, you can see a Kanban system for epics and how they have set up their Kanban columns and workflows. That's how we implemented it as well. And if I go back into my epics and enter the Kanban board from my epics, you can see as well I have my funnel column, review, analysis, portfolio backlog, and implementing. And then first from the funnel, the epics are reviewed, analyzed, and then added into the portfolio backlog, which means management or the customers together have decided that they will implement that change request or whatever issue or requirement that is. And after it's set into the implementing stage, then the team level, or actually your delivery team, will receive that item and they can start working on that and know what to work on. And then in the program level, which is one level lower, we have our agile release train. And again, the burn down chart, Kanban board can be used here. You can see that the first column is overloaded, so I have too many to-dos. I need to start working on these items, but I have free capacity in progress, so I'm not working on too much, so I should swarm on this column and start working on these items here. Then the last level is, for example, our team level, where we have several projects set up, each with several releases and several items and several sprints. And they're assigned through the portfolio and program level to the relevant release and sprints. And if I enter my first release here, for example, I can see all the items that the program level in the software one project are working on. I have all of these issues here, different workflows for tasks, issues, like I said. Okay, I hope that made a lot of sense, hopefully. So as you can see, the Scrum and Kanban methods, they're pretty distinct and they won't always work for everyone, but generally speaking, very generally speaking, if your teams have their working processes that work just fine but could use some optimization, then Kanban would be the appropriate choice, as it lets them gradually improve all their tried and tested processes. And on the other hand, if the development team seems to be stuck in a ditch and a fundamental change of processes seems inevitable, you should probably turn to Scrum to enhance efficiency. Our tool supports these methodologies, so all that you have seen here is included in our ALM system, and you can register online for a free trial on our website or contact us at sales@inland.com for a one-on-one demo. But what I also want to point out here is that besides having the right tool for the job, it is just as important to first understand the basic principles of each and then decide which solution best fits your needs. Agile methodologies can benefit your team and your companies if they're applied correctly, but the hardest part is to choose the right one. And while they may not solve all of your problems, they will surely improve your working processes and make them more effective, productive, and efficient if implemented correctly. Okay, and thank you for your attention. Make sure you join us next week on our webinar titled Managing Traceability in an Agile, Safety Critical Development Environment. And do you have any questions? I see 2 questions. First question is, why aren't you using the Scrum terminology for the meetings? What do you mean exactly? Could you clarify? Did I not use the right terminology, Scrum terminology? Do you know of different terminologies for the meetings? Next, taking questions. Richard Sheehan asks, yes, taking questions. Oh, he means ceremony. Okay, I think we should. Okay, so we have another question. Quite a few questions. The bug tracker and change requests you showed, are they part of Codebeamer or are they another package? Yes, everything is part of Codebeamer. So everything that I've shown is part of our Codebeamer ALM solution. The bug tracking, change requests, requirements management, testing, everything. This was just a tiny aspect of what our solution can do, specialized for this webinar today, the Scrum and the Kanban topics, but everything is part of it, of course. He probably means sprint planning meeting versus kickoff. Okay, sorry, I didn't make that clear. Sorry if I confused you with that. What are the typical failures you can do introducing agile methods? There's quite a few that we've encountered with our clients. Gregor, so I'm going to send you an email and more information about that. I'll make a quick note of that so I can send you more info on that if that's interesting for you. For sure. So all these Kanban objects you showed have traceability back to Codebeamer requirements, tests, etc. Yes. So everything, every item, every different item in different trackers, if they're connected in any way, you have to set up the relationship between them, and then the traceability is gapless and end-to-end, all the way from requirements through testing, through bugs, down to the source code. And you can visualize that on our traceability browser, but that's a topic for another webinar. All right, great. Glad to hear it. Check out our videos, or if you'd like, we can schedule a demo if you want more information on that. Okay, any more questions? I'll leave it open for a minute or two. No more questions? Okay, before everybody leaves, I'd like to ask you a few questions. If you could answer the poll on the screen, that would be much appreciated. All right, thanks. And one last one, please, before you leave. It would be very helpful. Oh, okay, wait, one more last question. How do you get the sum of the story points to be shown on the main ticket? On the statistical dashboard, on the overview for the releases and sprints, it's calculated automatically. You set up story points for each separate item, and then it's aggregated up to the statistical overview on the dashboard of your releases. Yeah. So you have a release and then sprints, which can have sub-sprints and so on. And all the items in the release or sprint or sub-sprint have story points, and those are aggregated to the higher level. And then that's how you can visualize how much you've committed and how much has been completed. All right, thanks for your answers. Do you have any more questions? Anybody, maybe? Okay, great. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your answers and questions. Feel free to contact us if you have any more questions, and everybody have a nice day. Bye-bye.